Hi, welcome to this week's Inspire. I think it's safe to say we're walking in times that many of us have never been through before. To use words like unprecedented or uncharted times is not an overstatement or an overreach. And for many, it's a very difficult time. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future. There's job loss. There's financial issues that they have to deal with. There's concern about their health, their family, their future. I want to shed some light on what might be going on in us during these uncertain times. You know, when I was raised in a church setting where Christians didn't have to deal with suffering. Christians were supposed to be exempt from suffering. Well, it didn't take very long till I learned that that was an ungodly belief, because the Bible talks a lot about suffering. The Bible does not hide the fact that suffering is actually part of this life. And so I want to spend a little time in this Inspire session and talk about the role of suffering, because the Bible doesn't say if you go through suffering, it's when you go through suffering. What do we do? How do we, quote unquote, suffer well in a biblical way? My favorite suffering verse, if you got to suffer, you might as well have a verse that's your favorite, right? My favorite suffering verse is 1 Peter 5:10. And after you have suffered for a little while, the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself perfect, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. I love this verse. And I want to take it and break it down kind of word by word, section by section, because it's very, very powerful. So it starts off with, after you have suffered for a little while. Again, notice he doesn't say if, because it's really a foregone conclusion that in this life, living on this world with the sin and everything else that's around us, you're going to suffer. You're going to have times when things are going to come against you. And the exciting part is that God does not waste our suffering. He does not waste those opportunities for us to grow and to become more and more grown into the image of Christ. And he doesn't use it in this verse, but later on he says, and don't be surprised when suffering comes. 1 Peter 4:12 says, Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal among you, which comes upon you for your testing, as though some strange thing were happening to you. I don't know about you. When I go through suffering, I'm always like, this shouldn't happen. This is a strange thing. No, it's part of life. It's something that as we get ready for it and prepare and really know that God's at work in the middle of the suffering, then it's okay. We can deal with it. So suffering's part of life. Number two, the word suffering really means undergoing evils, to be afflicted. It carries a couple of meanings that if we can put them into the English might make a little more sense to us. Words like pressure, words like stress. When you're under stress, when you're under the pressure of life, what happens to us? What goes on? Because that's the tool oftentimes that God uses. He doesn't cause it, but he uses those things to grow us more into the image of Christ. Then the next phrase says, the God of all grace will himself do some things in you. That's exciting, because the God of all grace really is a place where it's God doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. That's grace. We can't conform ourselves to the image of Christ, but God can. And he'll use our suffering. He'll use the things we go through. He'll use the pressure of life to do that in us. It was interesting, a couple of years ago, Cindy and I and our son Adam and his wife Lydia bought a house together and remodeled it. We were going to flip it. And the remodeling process made this verse come alive to me, because the words that he uses here are basically construction words. The first word that he uses after the demolition, okay, you have to, when you remodel a house, you have to demolish and take down the old before you can put the new in place. After the demolition, which is what suffering does, takes down our resources, our abilities, our strength. He says, the God of all grace will himself perfect you. The word perfect means to mend or repair what has been broken, to complete, to put in order. That's amazing that through this process of suffering, God is going to mend or repair all the broken places in us. He's going to complete us. He's going to put us into order. And again, as you remodel a house that we did, you begin to see the process of putting things in order, of confirming those things in the house. Which brings us to that second word, which is confirm. Confirm means to make stable, to place firmly, to set, or to affix. In other words, to attach. God uses this suffering to place us on a stable and firm foundation. He really uses it to attach us to Jesus instead of things of the world. The next word is strengthen, and it has a very deep Greek meaning. I'm just kidding. It means to make strong. Part of the process is He makes us strong in our walk with Him. And then the last word is establish. Establish means to lay a foundation, to make something stable. We remodeled this house. The bathroom floor floated, and we tried to put tile on this floating floor, and it kept cracking and breaking. So we had to go in and lay a new foundation for the floor, and once we did that, the tile went in and it looked gorgeous. That's what this is about. That's what God does, is He renews, if I can use a phrase, He restores our foundations so that it's firm, it's stable, it's complete, so that what He builds on that is in a stable foundation. So now when you put all that together, here's the Lee Whitman translation of that verse. You ready? 1 Peter 5:10, get ready. You will experience suffering in this life, but only for a little while. And I will be there with you through it all. I will make use of that suffering to mend and repair what's been broken in you. I promise to make you stable by attaching you to a firm and stable foundation. You will see that I'm using this to make you strong. When you look at suffering in that light, that the God of all grace is at work in us to do some incredible things that couldn't happen otherwise, kind of makes suffering worthwhile.